I'm Miriam Desable from UN Economic Commission for Africa. I have actually a question for both, but maybe they can merge the question. There is one aspect in Mr. Salvador's presentation that I didn't quite find consistent, in the sense that if indeed the hero has to become the master of both worlds, he has to come from one of those worlds. And I see him smiling, he knows where I'm getting at. And it seems that when we come from a definition of development that is exogenous, that comes from elsewhere, and get to a place that is totally, different in terms of system, in terms of social structure, power structure, etc. Isn't it an inherent recipe for non-success? I mean, I don't want to say failure, because it wouldn't be a failure, but in order to have a perfect success in innovation leading to development, it would have to come from within. I mean, Jason came from home, went elsewhere, and came back from home. It's like your Bal friend, the Nepalese friend. So I don't understand how you can come from one to another and really ensure success in making sure that development comes from elsewhere, even if you have, let's say, local anthropologists. And the second question, which is to the first panelist, but it's still the same thing, how do you make sure that you mitigate the resistance to change, resistance to technological change? Because most of the time, including and particularly in civil service, there is an inherent resistance to something that will by nature affect and disrupt the power structure that is well established, that is working fine, everybody's happy, everybody's getting its share of the blanket. So how do you mitigate that so that it doesn't become a complete obstacle? Thank you. Sorry for the length of the question.
Thank you very much. I suggest that we take a couple more, then we do one cluster of questions. I see you right there.
Hi, my name is Jen Chun Wang. I work for the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. I have a question for the director. Would you please tell us more about your classroom project in Intel? What is status, and what is goals, and when it will be finished? Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Sir, you have the floor. Could we have a mic here in front, please? Thank you.
My name's Dennis Gilhooly. I have a question for Tony from Intel. And it would be on the one laptop per child experience. Now, Nicholas Negroponte I've known for 20 years, and so is John Gage here. Right? And we were encouraging him to see the movie How the West Was Won, which means putting telegraph poles and railways up in the West before you think of the PC moving forward. But the question for Intel is, where do you see yourself? The PC is now essentially evolving into an intelligent device on the end of the network. We are at the point where the network possibly can actually do stuff. And where do you see yourself in the network? And where do you see the web evolving as we move towards the next generation?
Thank you very much. One last, yes, ma'am, you have the floor.
Good morning, my name is Daphne Nedelhorst. I'm the founder of Sawa Global. And we work in 50 countries worldwide, and we look for local heroes, people that we've never heard of before. And we look for the innovations that they have done in their communities. And we're finding that these people truly have the answers of what we mention here as development, but they have the answers to the critical questions and challenges that we're all trying to solve. So my question to Tony is, how has Intel looked at finding the innovations at the local heroes in the countries that we focus on? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's turn it back to the two panelists, and then we'll see. We're running out of time, but we'll see if we have time for another round. But please, Tony, you want to go first?
Sure. Try a little gymnastics here. I think the first and the last questions are actually very closely related. In terms of figuring out the difference between where the person or the developer, the innovator, or the hero comes from, I think that in any partnership, that there's an exchange of value, right? And actually, George Simmel was a philosopher in the turn of the 20th century, 1900. where he actually argues that humanity is defined by the fact that we can exchange, right? Where each party in a transaction gives up something with the hope of getting something else. So in terms of the partner going out and coming back and all of that, I think it's the notion of what's the value that each partner brings to the equation, to what's going on. And I argue that sometimes we don't think enough about the local heroes and the local system value and the local innovators that do actually have a lot of value that we don't privilege because we think we're doing something great, right? And many times we are, but if we don't actually listen, then we're reducing the probability of success overall. So I think that's how I might address those two questions. I think that related to the other half of your question is how does Intel find those folks? I would say that and to go to the question on Classmate PC, I'll address a piece of that. What we look for is where we think people are strong and have ideas for that resonate not with our technology per se, but that resonate with a direction for where we think the experience needs to be, right? And we try to understand that experience not in the terms of what Intel thinks necessarily, but understand the experience from a human perspective. What is the education experience that we think is supported, say, with access to a variety of resources? Last night we were talking, for example, and said that forgetting all about testing, forgetting all about improvements in education on a measurable test level, think about before and after microfiche, right? What is the impact that has on the ability of people to actually just answer questions? Just think there, right? So if we move forward on that level, we look for folks that are thinking within their system of how to do that, and we actively look for them. We have teams of social scientists and ethnographers that actually live in other countries and that are from there, right? Even though our company isn't from there, right? So we work that way. So that's where I might address that. Did you want to?
Yes, just a small supplementary point about endogenous solutions vis-a-vis exogenous ones. I'd say that for reform, you might need someone from within that area who has an outside exposure, or someone from outside who's able to transfer ownership to the community and then disappears. So what happens is that I would say that returning migrants like Mr. Joshi is an example of that. And we believe that migration provides a double benefit. It benefits him who giveth and him who receiveth. It helps.
Thank you very, very much indeed.
Actually,
to both
I need
of
to
you.
just address one.
Okay, Tony,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
You did ask a question very specifically.
Sure.
I didn't answer that. I think that I don't know exactly how your question relates to OLPC, so I'll probably skip over that part. Oh, okay. Then just to be fair, I think that what we're looking at here is and I would translate the question into something you might have asked, which is, how does computing technologies overall actually address issues around literacy and literacy writ large? So if I look at the UN definition of literacy, it boils down to the expression and creation of meaning, right? And if I look at the expression and creation of meaning both in education institutions and out, what we see very broadly that has to be obvious is an increase, a gross increase in media literacy. And I think this is one of those magnifying forces John Gage was talking about, that you see a strong magnification of literacy in different kinds of media, whether it's small snippets of audio or video or text or video and audio and text, coming together. And the tools to do that, to create that literacy, I think are what are going to start driving some of the adoption of technology. And that's one way of actually sort of, I was going to say bottom lining, but maybe this isn't the right place. One way of summing up, right, some of the social networking and the YouTubing and podcasting kinds of activities, which is really a notion of creating and expressing meaning, right, through social structures, right? And so I think the technologies will start to form around that, and the technologies that have the maximum benefit one way or another will win out, I guess, or there'll be a gross diversification as well. So it could go either way. Yeah.
Thank you very much to our two panelists, Mr. Baswan and Dr. Salvador, for a brilliant presentation, and to you all for your questions.